This is a hopefully short little lesson about 2 years are better than four and what's the matter with college and how we go about writing a critique. I've read through a lot of discussion board posts from our discussions about the article 2 years are better than four and wanted to help you all understand how we start critiquing it. And we'll do that by breaking down the two essays and then trying to formulate some conclusions about them. So let me go. All right. So our assignment is to critique Liz Addison's 2 years are better than four. You can read the assignment, but basically we're trying to find out whether she does a good job with her essay. To do that, we're going to look at what she's responding to, why she wrote it, and all that good stuff. So the first thing we have to understand is the situation, the context. Her first purpose is to write an essay for the contest from the New York Times Magazine to win a scholarship, I think. And the idea is college as America used to understand is coming to an end, a direct quote from the Pearlstein essay. And it says that Pearlstein wrote all this stuff in his essay, What's the Matter with College? So please read it and then answer the question, is the college experience less critical to the nation than it was a generation ago? So Addison's primary purpose is to win the contest, and her primary audience is made of the contest judges, which is a lot different than we might think had we not known the original context of this essay, which would mean that as we get to other criteria, her second purpose is to respond to Pearlstein's claim about college and address the question, is it less critical? Her audience might be the New York Times Magazine readers or possibly other students considering college, but it's not really anyone specific. It's just kind of a general, whoever wants to read this can read it sort of thing. Her main claim is that Pearlstein is wrong about college because he doesn't know that 2-year colleges are the places where everything he says is missing and 4-year colleges is happening. That's the whole thing, and she spends the rest of her paper basically selling us on 2-year schools, which is fine. Addison addresses the generational shift in the value of college by painting Pearlstein as a product of the 1960s when, quote, jazz riffs hung in the dorm lounge air with the smoke of 1,000 bongs. It's a beautiful line. She's got some really evocative phrases in her writing, but we also have to ask, where did Pearlstein talk about smoking or anything like that? We don't see it in his essay. He doesn't reference marijuana or anything. So it's a good line, but is it representing Pearlstein accurately? So Addison's arguing Pearlstein's out of touch and old. He's privileged because he went to an elite 4-year school. Pearlstein doesn't know anything about 2-year colleges, and that beatniks and building takeovers didn't mean anything in the long run. So there's a lot of burns that she delivers to Pearlstein in these great phrases. She says, community colleges are the social equalizer where students from under-resourced social economic backgrounds can move up. So I'm sorry, that should be a D instead of an S. So that's what she's trying to say. When we look at the Pearlstein essay, we see that he's actually interviewing people from the 60s and 70s, those are the beatnik people, but also current college students. He reveals that older people have fond memories of the experiences outside of class, reveals that current college students find their experience at college infantilizing. It's uncreative and uninspiring. And he's revealing that a certain type of student, the organizational kid, thrives in this environment of overscheduling and overplanning. So overall, he's arguing that the importance of colleges used to be a place where students were introduced to a larger world outside their comfortable suburban existence. But students are coming to college with that experience. And then students come to college for social and economic mobility. It's what it used to be, right, in the 60s and 70s. But now students are children of people who have attended those colleges and are already benefiting from that social mobility. So what is there left to gain? When we get to Addison, we'll see that she's saying a different type of group. So there is a difference between 2-year and 4-year students. What is that, and what is she saying is going on? So a lot of you said in your discussion boards, can't we just let them disagree? Or some of you said, oh, wow, they're the same age. They had different experiences. That's really interesting. It is, but we also have to think about how Addison portrayed Pearlstein as someone much older than her, but they're the same age. So, what does all this mean? I think it matters because Addison's presenting Pearlstein's ideas as antiquated. She has a lot of sarcasm in her writing, from the hand wringing, and those other things that she says, like, let's not forget that the beatniks didn't change anything. And even though Pearlstein had these traditional college experiences, attending college directly at high school, Pearlstein defines what he means by college experience. He talks about that transition from adolescence to work life and how college stands in between. And that's what he says is missing. So we have to look at what is Pearlstein defining, not just this random word college, but how does he use it in his essay. Addison, as a non-traditional student who didn't attend high school in America, she's never experienced these same things that Pearlstein describes. So does that matter? Is she fully addressing Pearlstein's claims? The contest asks for entrants to answer these questions about the importance of colleges and respond to Pearlstein. And does she do this? Is she responding to Pearlstein? Or is she doing something completely different? And that's what we have to ask. So let's look at how they say college matters. Pearlstein talks about colleges are no longer the driving force because students are experiencing a different type of college than what he and his friends experienced in the 60s and even the 80s. Pearlstein interviews current college students and finds them dissatisfied. So is that not valid? Is the question we should be asking. Does Addison even recognize that he interviewed current college students? What does that matter? Addison doesn't mention Pearlstein's information from students and only says that they're working. Addison does point out that community colleges admit anyone and provides for more socially democratic experience, which is good. Addison argues that because community colleges are serving an underrepresented class of people, social intellectual awakening is even more significant because they're not getting it because their parents didn't go to college. They're first-generation college students. This is all brand new for them, and it's happening only in the two-year college. Let me see. Yeah. So I ask, are they really at odds? Is college coming to an end as we know it? Addison says that those experiences only exist at the two-year college. So aren't they really saying the same thing? Does it matter where the social and intellectual challenges happening? So I want you to consider that most two-year colleges are non-residential, whereas four-year schools, people live there, those dorm rooms, right? Pearlstein was talking about how most of the experience involves activity outside. Can you think of who is going to partake in these extracurricular activities? What type of student will participate in those at a two-year college where it's voluntary, where it's not part of your everyday life? You have to stay extra. How do students interact on two-year campuses? Think about that. If it's not residential, what are you doing? And if you're working and going to school and working, when is there time for educational activities? So for Addison, the activities, the awakenings are happening inside the classroom. For Pearlstein, they're happening outside the classroom. She represents Pearlstein's education as privileged. Now, University of Chicago is a private school. Is Addison attacking all four-year schools in her essay by calling them universities of privilege, or just University of Chicago? That's something to consider. And as we move on, consider what the purpose of college is. What are we supposed to be doing in school? Pearlstein refers to the growth in colleges as this demand to meeting new skills for students to enter the workforce. He admits that many students, through access to the internet, are able to get these awakenings at an early age, and argues that community college students are not part of this above group. Addison says that, and the experience has shifted. So what is the purpose of a four-year school? What is it designed to do? Does Pearlstein's writing warrant the sarcasm from Addison? And 3 more slides. So how do we start our critique? We start by explaining the points and purposes. So consider her situation. Then we acknowledge her claim and her support and describe the situation of the entire essay. Point out her strengths. Say, here's what she's doing great. As a standalone essay, she's really doing a good job. She's attacking Pearlstein, and people really seem to like that. Show her support. Then point out the weaknesses or inconsistencies in her argument and in her support. And then finally, how do we look at this as a critique? And how does it represent Pearlstein's argument? Is it accurate? Does it evaluate the rhetorical situation of Pearlstein's essay? Does she critique it? Does she respond properly? Does she answer the question that is asked of her? So we had to find our thesis. What is your main idea? What is it you want to say about the essay? Can you hold two separate ideas about this essay at the same time? It is a good essay, but it's also bad. Can you do that? And how do you phrase it? Part of the struggle about writing criticism is finding the language, the right language. So you might want to consider how the essay works as a contest entry and how it works as a response to Pearlstein. Two different levels. Does she answer the question, or does she deflect? And if she deflects, why do you think she deflected? What is good about her deflection? Help you find your thesis. Try to find the phrase or finish the phrase in Liz Addison's essay. 2 years are better than 4. She responds to Rick Pearlstein's assertion that college experiences no longer exists by blank, blank, blank. How does she do that? Fill in those blanks. And some final reminders about formatting. I want you to refer to the authors by first and last name the first time you mention them. After that, you refer to them by their last name only. So Addison and Pearlstein. The article titles are in quotation, so 2 years are better than 4, and What's the Matter with College, both in quotations. Newspapers and magazine titles are in italics, New York Times. And then finally, include a works cited entry for both articles. You can find that in your little Seagull handbook. I know I talked about it in the video, but I think it was page 139. I'm flipping through it right now. Sorry. That talks about, page 139, article in a magazine or article in a newspaper online, and that will be very helpful for you. So good luck with your critique, and please be sure to email me if you have any questions.